In today's video, gents, I'm laying out 10 watch styles I think every man needs to know. Let's start things off with a story. April 18th, 1891. We're about 40 miles west of Cleveland, Ohio, near Kipton Station, and we have a horrific train accident. Basically what happened is we had one train going at full speed. The fast mail train ran into the back of the Toledo Express. What happened? So in the ensuing investigation, what they discovered, it was a 4-minute discrepancy in watch times between the trains that led to the deadly incident. Basically, the Toledo Express thought they were running on time, when the watches the engineers were wearing apparently were 4 minutes behind. They should have given the right-of-way to the fast mail train. Now, because of this tragedy, an Ohio jeweler named Webb C. Ball, he was actually commissioned to be the chief time inspector. Now, what Ball did over the next 2 years is pretty amazing. He created standards so that the accuracy of all the watches carried by all engineers on every train was accurate to within 30 seconds. In addition to the accuracy, he also made sure that all watches had to be open-faced, they had to be certain sizes, they had to have a certain number of jewels, they had to actually be able to deal with certain temperatures, they had to have black Arabic numbers on a white dial, among other things. So as you can probably guess, the first watch I think every man needs to know is the rail watch. It serves as an important reminder of a time in history when mere seconds could mean the difference between life or death. Now, gents, as a quick reminder, down in the description of today's video, I'm going to be linking to a free ebook which has all this information condensed into a single PDF. Again, it's yours free. I'm linking to it down in the description. So the next watch style that every man needs to know is the pocket watch. And let's go back 350 years. Now, men had been wearing watches for a while, but mostly around their neck. And it was over in England when we saw the introduction of the waistcoat, and we had Charles II of England. He introduced basically the pocket watch. And this was a watch, yes, made specifically to go into a pocket on his waistcoat. Now, for the next 250 years, pocket watches are going to dominate the landscape. This was a sign of nobility. This was a sign that you had money, and it was really cool to be able to have this little machine, which at the time, these were basically the computers of the time, and it was a great status symbol. Not only did you know the time, but you also were able to show the world, show everyone around you that you could afford to know the time. So the next watch style that every man needs to know is the field watch. And let's go back to 1879. We're going to go see Kaiser Wilhelm I. Basically, he commissions 2,000 watches to be made for his naval officers. And he wants them to be a bit more rugged. This is going to be a very functional watch. And he realizes the importance of his military, the men in the military, knowing their time. And what we see over the next 50 years is the evolution of the field watch. All of a sudden, they're wanting to make sure there's a few specific details they wanted for this. So when it comes to the band, they wanted easily replaceable canvas, nylon, or leather bands. When it comes to the case, they wanted stainless steel. They wanted something tough so that the watch inside could actually be a bit more durable and deal with getting knocked around. We also wanted to make sure you could tell the time. So high contrast black dials with white numbering. In addition, it was nice to have a glare-proof glass so you could actually read the time, and a hacking second hand, which basically means you could start the second hand, you could stop it, and this allowed you basically to have kind of a stopwatch feature. Now, we also saw loomed hands pop up, but that was a bit later. Now, the most interesting thing to me about the field watch is really the transition that happened from the pocket watch to the wristwatch. In the military, basically during World War I, what we saw, a lot of guys realized the practicality of having a watch on your wrist that you actually could just flip over and see the time versus having to reach into your pocket. Now, the field watch takes us to the next style of watch that every man needs to know, and that is the dress watch. So what's interesting about the dress watch, after World War I, these guys loved wearing the wristwatches. So they also wanted to have a watch they could wear when they're at home, when they're going out to these nice events. They're wearing black tie, they're wearing their formal attire, they are wearing maybe even their business attire. So dress watches were the watches of choice. These would be thinner watches, ones that have a very low profile. So when you look at a classic dress watch, the things you're going to notice about this is it really isn't gaudy. This isn't something that's going to draw a lot of attention to itself. It really has no complications. The goal of a dress watch is to give you the time. Now, I know if you're watching this video, you like watches, you're going to wear your watch whenever. So if you're going to choose a good dress watch, you want to make sure, again, it's something that is not very thick. You want something that's going to fit under your dress shirt. You also want to look at the band. Maybe go with a dark colored leather band in black or a dark brown. What you want to pay attention to, again, on the dress watch is less is more. You won't want to go for an overly sized, so anything beyond 42 millimeters is probably too big for a dress watch. This should be something that is small, that is elegant, that is timeless in design. Next up, let's talk about the dive watch. And I have to admit, this is one of my favorite styles of watches out there. And let's go all the way back to 1927. And we had a woman who basically had swam the English Channel. Her name was Mercedes Glitz, and they basically said that she didn't do it. So she's like, I'm going to do it again. And this time, Rolex showed up and said, hey, we're going to document this for you, but will you wear our watch around your neck? Because at the time, watches were not waterproof, or maybe there were a few out there, but this wasn't something that was advertised. Now, let me be clear. Rolex didn't invent the dive watch, but they did make the idea of a waterproof watch popular with everyone. In the 1950s, we saw a French company, Blancpain, basically they worked with French special forces to create a dive watch. And this was the 50 Fathoms, an amazing watch, a little bit expensive, but let me go ahead and pull up another watch. It's a little bit less expensive, but also is probably the go-to watch of Rolex's line, and that is the Submariner. Now, when you're looking at this watch, the most distinctive feature on a dive watch is going to be the unidirectional bezel. Basically, this means the bezel only rotates in one direction, counterclockwise, and the reason is to ensure that even in the case of an accidental manipulation underwater, you will err on the side of caution when it comes to how much oxygen you have left. So I know for me, what I love about dive watches is the functionality. When you look at, okay, they're made from precious metals, they're made from a stainless steel. It's because that is not going to corrode in salt water. When you look at actually the lume, this is something that needs to be bright, something that will be visible as you go under the water. You look at that bezel, again, it's functional. It's going to make sure that you know how much time you have left on your oxygen tanks. So all these things that go into it, it's just amazing that you can have something so functional that yet is so beautiful. And really quick about water resistance, 200 meters does not mean you can take the watch down to 200 meters. It's a little bit more complicated than that, unfortunately. I explained that in this video right here if you're interested in what is the true water resistance of your watch. So the next watch style that every man needs to know is the Aviator watch. Let's take you back to 1906, and we have a gentleman named Alberto Santos-Dumont, and he's got a friend named Louis Cartier. He's got a watch company, and he's like, hey, I need something to be able to track time when I'm up there flying, and so we get the first Aviator watch. Now, the initial Aviator watch had Roman numerals and a curved dial in a rectangular case. Now, a little bit of history, Cartier still produces the watch named after Santos-Dumont, honoring their partnership in the early 20th century. Now, the key characteristics of an Aviator watch are going to be size first up. So these are going to be larger watches. Why? Because there's going to be a lot of complications in here, and pilots need to be able to see very quickly and clearly what time it is and what else is going on in their watch. So we're normally going to see black dials with white numbers for easy visibility. We're also going to have a large crown with very clean grooves so that if you're wearing a pair of gloves, you're going to be able to adjust the time or be able to adjust the dials on the watch. Now, I talked about complications. Here we're going to see multiple chronographs, and the pushers on the side, they're going to enable you to start and stop the watch chronographs. Now, you're also going to see variants out there that are GMT versions. What this means is Greenwich Mean Time, which uses a 24-hour international time scale. Next up, we've got the racing watch, another one of my personal favorites. What I love about these is they mix the function with the style. So with racing watch, they want all the complications, they want all the details, they need to be durable, they need to be tough, but they also want to be flashy. They want them to look great. If you're going to be driving a good race car, you might as well look great with style. So you're going to see some great colors, you're going to see some interesting designs, and overall, again, some of these are great watches. Every good racing watch is going to have complications. We're talking about a chronograph to start with. So a chronograph is a watch with a separate stopwatch function, usually featuring an extra subdial or even 3, and the pushers at the 2 and the 4 o'clock position, they're going to allow you to stop and reset the second hand. Next up, on a lot of good racing watches, you're going to see a tachymeter. This is used to make distance and time calculations. Also, a good racing watch needs to have high visibility dials. This is important because when you're driving at a high speed, you've got a lot of vibration going on. You need to be able to see and read the time. Speaking of vibrations, good racing watches, they're going to be very durable. They're going to be shock resistant. These are watches that are going to get knocked around just simply because you're going to get knocked around in that racing car. Next up, we've got the digital watch, and this was first introduced in 1972 in Pennsylvania. We saw Hamilton Watch Company come out with the Pulsar. So the first digital watch had a gold case, sold for over $2,000, and actually used LED digits to be able to show the time. Now initially the LED display, it was bad because it really drained the batteries. These things would run out of power very quickly. But later on, Seiko introduced the LCD display, which was the liquid crystal display, and this right here used a lot less power and eventually led to the quartz watch revolution. Nowadays, digital watches are everywhere, and what's great about them is they're incredibly accurate. So when it comes to stopwatches, when it comes to timers, you can get down to the nanosecond, so you can really tell exactly what time it is. And it needs to be noted that digital watches can be made at an incredibly low price. That's why you're able to see them being sold for $5. Something that can tell you accurate time, which a few hundred years ago, you would have got a king's ransom if you could do what this digital watch for less than $5 can actually do. Next up, we've got the smartwatch, and don't confuse this style with the digital watch. The smartwatch actually takes outside input and uses it to give you smart information, hence the smartwatch. So we've got the obvious, we've got the Apple Watch, but there are less obvious watches. There are digital watches that take barometric pressure or take the temperature. They're taking outside information and they're relaying that information to you. That is the distinction between a smartwatch and a digital watch. And yes, you can have digital watches that are also smartwatches. Now, of all the watch styles out there, smartwatches can be some of the most confusing because they come in such a wide variety of different styles. You're going to see, the expensive Apple Watch for thousands of dollars, that gold one. I think they discontinued it, but you're also seeing higher end brands get into smartwatches where it looks like a mechanical watch. In fact, it is a mechanical watch, but it's also got a smartwatch functionality with it. Now, smartwatches, are they a good investment? Should you buy one? I'm still reserving judgment because the issue with the smartwatch is that technology changes. But if you've got a smartwatch that actually is serving the purpose, you're going to get function, you're going to use it, I would say go for it. But again, this isn't something that has really reached the apex, and it's probably never going to reach that pinnacle point of where it really can't develop anymore, which we've actually seen for the most part in mechanical watches and even quartz watches. So this next style of watch I know a lot of guys don't like, but I'm going to defend them, and that is the fashion watch. So I've talked about companies like Vincero, The Fifth, Original Grain, Movement, and I know a lot of people want to hate on them, but here's the deal, is men who buy fashion watches are usually just getting into watches. They like the way it looks, and this is an entry point watch. This is something you buy because you simply like the way it looks. But here's the thing, is that almost all the watch brands out there started off as some sort of fashion watch. Because if you had to know accurate time, since the 1970s, you could have gone with a digital watch. But all these other watches, they're about aspiration. They're about finding something that you just like that history. Each of these watch styles I've talked about in today's video have a place in history, have a place in time. And I have to thank fashion watches for getting me back into watches after probably a 15-year break from watches. Now, gents, if you're interested about chronographs and their history, check out this video I made right here. Maybe you're out wanting to buy a Rolex, then check out this other video I've created for you. And if you just want to learn why every man should start wearing a watch, check out this video I created right here. All of these guys I will link to down in the description. I've got a playlist set up so you can go through and watch all these videos.